Okay, here I am in front of the firing line in Aurora, Colorado. We're going to go in and get ourselves a Honor Guard from Honor Defense. There's been some hoorah online about potentially this gun not being safe, so we're going to go pick one up.
So Jacob and I have come to test the Honor Guard from Honor Defense 9mm, and because we're at this particular range, they require him to wear that beautiful vest.
It's true.
That's styling, man. I dig it.
You know, sometimes you just gotta do what's required.
We can't miss who is in charge around here. Got the place to ourselves. So let's see this Honor Guard. Hold on, he's setting up a tripod. Let's see here, what do we got here? What do we got? All right. Oh, apparently there's a label. Hold on, it's a job for Benchmade. There she be.
Okay, we will.
Honor Guard, 9mm. It's clear. Okay. So we're down here at the range today, and we're here to do some testing on the Honor Defense. See here, we just opened this up. You watched us open this out of the box. Brand new from the store. Jacob picked this up today. Brought it straight down to the range, met up with me. And we got the Honor Defense Honor Guard 9mm pistol. These have been getting quite a bit of traction in the last year or two, especially since a lot of people are comparing these to the Smith & Wesson Shield. Some think it's better, some don't necessarily think that. We're not really sure exactly where our opinion lies, because I've never even shot one yet. So this is the first time I'm getting my hands on with one. And so far, let me just go over a couple of features that jump out at me. First, I'm noticing we've got an ambidextrous mag release, both sides. You don't have to switch it out and only choose one side or the other. So it's completely ambidextrous that way. We got fully ambidextrous slide lock. It's got a really simple takedown procedure, very similar to a SIG P320, and you just rotate the lever and it slides right off. No need to pull the trigger or anything like that. And when we look at the internals, we see it actually has some similarities to a P320, and that's actually probably what's at issue today as we are testing this. Is rumor has it that these may not be drop safe, much in the same way as the SIG P320, where dropped on at a certain angle, typically kind of down this angle like so. In theory, it's causing the gun to discharge. We're going to be testing that out today. But first, just going over a few more features. We got some nice metal sights, bright orange dot front, white dot rear. Not night sights. Certainly looks like these could be upgraded and improved upon. For daylight conditions, the sight picture looks fine. Not a bad little gun. It's similar to a Smith & Wesson Shield. Like some people have said, it feels very similar. The balance is a little bit different. It feels like it's got a little bit more weight to it, a little more heft. A little bit more weight towards the front of the gun as well. And we do see that as we look at the slide. The slide's pretty beefy. It's a solid slide. It's a little bit, it actually feels like it's a little bit taller to me. Like we've got a little bit more mass above the hand than probably what I would prefer or what I would like to see, particularly if you're into the Glock. Even the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield doesn't have quite as high a bore axis as what we see from the Honor Guard here. But we'll see how it feels when actually shooting. And so that's the deal. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run a minimum of 200 rounds through this gun right now. We're going to go through it about as fast as we can go. I do have some testing protocol that I kind of like to go through with just about all the guns that I test and shoot. We're going to go through 200 rounds as fast as we can. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to modify anything. We're not going to clean it. We're not going to lube it. We're just going to see how it performs straight out of the box. Is it reliable or not? Things of that nature. And then we'll get, once we verify this is a working gun, like we said, it was purchased straight from a gun dealer locally to us here today. Jacob himself picked it up, did the deal, brought it straight here to the range. It's straight out of the box. This hasn't been touched as far as we know by anybody that would indicate that it is, this is a standard gun, just like what any of you guys out there would pick up from the store yourself. And so we'll see if it is going to fail this drop test or not. We've seen some video out there where that's been the case. So we're going to do our own test here today. So let's get to some shooting. So my impressions of the trigger, just in case you're wondering, is it's not bad. It's about what you would expect from a striker-fired gun. The reset's a little bit longer than what you would expect. It feels kind of somewhere in between where most striker fired guns are at today and a double action only. It's not that long, it's not that stiff like a double action only gun would be typically, but the reset is just a little bit longer than what I expected from it, especially if you're familiar with the Smith & Wesson Shield. All right, so let's get some rounds in this bad boy. It's basically dialed right in to where the sights are. It's impacting right where the dot in my front sight is on that target. You know, not trying to shoot terribly fast or slow. Accurate reasonably, right? For typical guns of this caliber and from this distance, we're shooting at 5 yards here today. Let's do another magazine. All right. Not as controllable as what I would probably find from my Glock 43. Started getting a little bit wild there for my taste. I don't know if some of that is the mass of that slide above the hand or not, but let's get some more rounds down there. Hey, you can see with that long trigger reset, it's catching me off guard periodically where I'm short stroking that just slightly because I'm not used to the reset like that. Oh, I threw that one. Cool. We're gonna do a test right now, just to see if it has any extraction issues without a magazine in the gun. Yeah, it trips up a lot of semi-automatics. Obviously, they're designed to be fired with a magazine in the gun, but every once in a while, you have to ask yourself, "Yeah, that one worked. Is there the possibility of me, for some reason, needing to fire without a magazine in the gun?" Not likely, but possible. At least something good to know if it's going to malfunction on you. So that one ejected out of the grip, which tells me that the extraction is not as positive as what I'd like to see. But that first one stovepiped. Everything else is good since. There we go, there's another one. By the way, Glocks struggle with this too. So it's not alone in this regard. Mag release is, obviously this is a carry gun, so it doesn't protrude a lot. It's a little bit challenging for me to get really good positive purchase on the mag release. Have to really sometimes take care and press it firmly.
Yeah, reset. So crazy.
All right, we're going to test cycling in one-handed shooting, just to make sure. I'm going to limp wrist a couple. It's running like a champ even when violently limp wristing it, so that's cool. One thing I am noticing though is that the trigger is getting warm. It's a metal trigger that's attached to, you know, the pins and stuff that's going through the frame and all of that, which is soaking up heat from the slide from the barrel. It's coming down into the trigger. So you're feeling just a little bit of warmth in that trigger. I suspect if we keep going, it's going to keep getting warmer and warmer. The slide itself is very, very warm to the touch now. Just to give you a sense of the volume of fire we're putting through this right now. And we've done almost 130 rounds here, just in a matter of 10 minutes. We're going to try some different positions. This one's always fun. Has no problem cycling no matter which way the gun's pointed. So far what we're seeing is it's a pretty reliable gun. Other than it didn't like shooting without a magazine in the gun. But that was about 10% failure. It's about what I see from the Glocks as well. In case you're wondering, Smith & Wesson M&Ps. I don't know about the Shield. I haven't tested the Shield that way yet, but the M&Ps don't have an issue. The P320 doesn't have an issue with that. Frankly, I was surprised when I discovered that with the Glock, because everyone always talks so highly of how reliable Glocks are. They are, unless you try to shoot it without a mag in it. Once again, how likely is that going to happen? Not terribly likely, but good to know anyway. Yeah, I'm anticipating. On the 7-round mag, so there's 2 magazines. We got a 7-rounder and an 8-rounder. This one's got the slide extension, just like the Shield comes. They're even shaped. I mean, look how similar in shape those look to the Shield mags. Very similar in shape and size. And getting that 7th round in this one's a little bit stiff. This other magazine, the 8-rounder, is a little bit easier to load up. Magazines do drop freely from the grip when the mag release is pressed, so that's good. Still running solidly.
I'm struggling with that trigger. I keep short stroking it. And I'm like, why didn't it go bang? Resurface it anytime soon either.
Oh,
It's our first malfunction.
this is like round 200. All right, so this is our last round. This looks like a failure to feed. It got hung up there going, that's amazing. 200 rounds, and on the 200th round exactly, we had a failure to feed. So, yeah, whew, that thing is warm. Yeah, definitely a failure to feed. Well, let's finish off that last round.
Did it bend it?
Yeah, a little bit. Not the casing. It's the bullet itself is got a little bit of a... Okay. All right, 200 rounds, one malfunction as far as under normal operating conditions. We did have those failure to ejects on the firing the gun without a magazine in it. And then on the 200th round, we had a failure to feed. We'd run more ammo through this and really do a proper torture test, just because that would be fun, interesting to see how that turns out. But that's what that's all the shooting we're doing with it for today, just due to time. We're going to now set this up and get ready to do some drop testing, which will be done with empty casings with primers in them. And so we obviously do that safely. I'm not terribly concerned about testing it in horizontal situations, but more or less testing that situation that has been demonstrated and seeing if we get the same results similar to those other, Patrick over at the Firearm Rack, and then also Jeremy at the truthaboutguns.com. So, alrighty, we'll get set up. All right, here's the moment of truth. We are now about to test the Honor Defense Honor Guard 9mm pistol for the, we'll call it the SIG P320 drop test, right? We're going to drop it at this kind of 30 to 45 degree angle on the back of the slide and see if it causes the gun to fire. So I'm going to do this with an empty shell casing that you see here. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this shell casing. It's got a live primer in it, just no bullet or powder. Okay, so we've got the shell casing in there ready to go. I'm going to make sure I have my ears protected. Here we go. Moment of truth. Okay. You ready, Jacob?
Yep.
This is from basically my shoulder height, which is about where I would be holding the gun, simulating if I was to somehow accidentally drop this. Here we go. That looked painful. All right, a little bit of marring, but not too bad. Here we go, again. Okay, well, I'm going to change the angle up a little bit. All right, here we go again. Now let's just make sure. Yeah, nothing on the primer yet. No marks, no light strikes or anything like that. Once again, just some marring on the finish, but no damage otherwise appears to be on the actual gun itself. Okay, here we go. We're going to go a little bit higher height this time. We're not getting anything. Just taking a look at the primer again. There actually is a light strike on this primer. I'm going to come over to you, Jacob. See if I can get that in the frame. There's a light strike on that primer. So there might be something to this. It's not, I wondered if it would happen on the first go around. It didn't. Okay. Still, no. The rear sight has been bumped over, just so you know. We can push that back. Okay, here we go. That was probably the most solid drop out of the ones we've done so far. That was a little flatter. We'll give it a couple more goes. Still nothing. Rear sights totally actually worked loose out of the gun. I mean, I just pulled it out. Interesting. We'll proceed without a rear sight. I'm going to give it one more of a vertical drop. And one that's a little bit more angled. Nothing.
By shooting it. See if you get the primers.
Okay. Oh. Nothing. Did it fire? And we just didn't catch it? Okay. It's functioning once again. So we may have, it tripped the trigger. The trigger had definitely tripped. There was nothing there. But it didn't strike the primer firmly enough apparently to... I do see we broke a little bit of the grip on the bottom. Just mainly cosmetic. Let's give it maybe one more or two more tries. That's a pretty solid drop. Check the trigger is tripped.
We haven't blown it, so to speak.
The trigger is tripping itself, but the primer has not been fired. I'm going to try a fresh one here. So that's interesting. And that happened just on that one try. Okay. Pretty similar drop like some of the others. Trigger is tripped, but the gun did not fire. The casing, no marks on it. So somehow the trigger disengaged but did not fire. Let's try the mallet test. Okay, so the mallet test, which had been shown to be effective on a P320 with multiple strikes. Patrick at the firearm rack was also able to get it to fire with the mallet. So let's see if we can get this to go. There we go. Now those are more of a linear strike, you know, in line with the barrel and all that. So it did fire. I'm wondering if we need to drop it more vertically with the drop test. Okay, here we go. Let's do it again. All right. So I started lighter and a little heavier and a little heavier. It does seem like there's probably a point where I can strike hard enough that it'll cause it to fire. I'm going to try initially a stronger, we'll try a stronger strike this time from the get-go. All right, here we go. Yeah. Okay. I think we need to repeat the drop test. No rear sight. Still perfectly functional. All right, so we've dropped this a number of times. We tried different angles. It did not fire being dropped. It did not ignite the primer of the case. We do have an empty case in this right now, but we have seen it where it has tripped the trigger, not striking the primer, but the trigger has been tripped, meaning that it was a dead trigger. So then we struck with the rear, or on the rear with the mallet, and with a firm enough strike, it appears that you can go 1 for 1, striking hard enough on the rear of the gun and causing it to fire. Hard to say exactly what level of force that would be in terms of foot-pounds of force or whatever, and to try to equate that to something. But we're going to repeat the drop test a couple more times, trying to make it more in line with the muzzle or barrel of the gun, which is similar to the force that we were getting from the mallet on the rear of the gun. All right, so we'll drop straight vertical this time. All right, here we go. Trigger is still engaged. I have damaged the grip a little further. The trigger is tripped.
pretty hard to get the perfect angle on the drop, but the mallet test seems pretty...
I'm going to go higher. Okay. So just see if it's a matter of force. That was not very straight on the rear impact.
Yeah, it's the angle that's hard to get the right.
That's pretty solid there.
Yeah, we're leaving marks in concrete.
Yep. Let's take a look at the primer itself. There's a light mark on the primer, but clearly not enough to cause it to ignite. That's a solid drop there. So, and it did trip the trigger once again. Trigger is tripped. We're just not getting it to fire. So we are able to get the fire striking on the rear with a mallet, but it is not firing just by dropping. And we've got this several times where the trigger, let me demonstrate one more time. You stay right where you're at, Jacob. I'm gonna drop this. Solid primer strike. It did fire. That's the first time and it was a solid drop. It was straight on the rear of the slide. It did fire. Okay, I think we have to try to duplicate it. Okay, here we go. This is what we're talking about. So it just dropped. It did not fire like we got it to a second ago, but you see the trigger has been tripped. Okay, if we look at the shell casing, it does have a light primer strike. Okay, just a light strike on it so far. Okay. I think we still need to see if we can duplicate it. Here we go. Trigger is tripped again. Okay, we're re-engaged. Trigger is tripped. I'm going to try to get it a little more vertical again. Trigger is not tripped after that, and that was a solid drop. Something broke off. What did we break? Piece of metal. Okay, well I think we got to stop at this point. We've broken the rear, what do we call this? Having a brain fart. This back cover plate, it is now broken. And I don't think there's any point to continue testing when the gun is clearly, and we have a dented rail on the slide. Okay, so we've dropped this, I don't know how many times. We should have been counting them. 20 times? 30 times?
30.
Quite a few. We have sustained some damage. We've got a bent rail. We have a broken back cover plate. And we've got a missing rear sight. Front sight is still in line, still intact. Does have a little ding on it. We've got other marring and other damage. We got it to fire one time, being dropped on the rear of this slide. Is one time too many? It's a good question to ask. I feel pretty confident we can go 1 for 1 on striking the rear of the slide with a mallet and getting it to fire repeatedly. So, I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. You decide for yourself. Is this a problem for you? Would this keep you from carrying this gun? Is it likely you're going to be able to duplicate something exactly like this in the real world where you're wearing this in a holster and something causes to fire? Don't know. Could you have a situation where you go to draw the gun or you're firing the gun and you drop the gun and it causes it to discharge inadvertently? I don't know. That's the problem, is we don't know, but it certainly doesn't feel very good in the back of the mind knowing that it is possible for this to happen. I think another valid question is it possible to achieve similar results from other guns that are out there on the market? We know this was an issue. The first gun that really came to light was the SIG P320, and that appears to have been fixed, at least from what we can tell. We have not done any testing yet on the newly revised 320. I don't have any of them back yet, but that remains to be seen. But should we look at other pistols from other manufacturers and see if this is something that it could be affecting other guns out there? I think that's a worthwhile question to ask. But clearly this is one that we should at least look at. The manufacturer should revisit, see if there's anything that can be done or anything that is an inherent problem with the design of this firearm that causes it to be able to fire from being dropped. We were able to get one drop to fire the gun out of however many, but still is one too many.